Welcome back, students. In this session we will discuss about generation of computers. Totally we have, so till present day, fifth generation of computers are present, so till today. So we will go one by one. So that is first generation of computers. So 1940 to 1956, so that period, so 1940 to 1956 period is considered as first generation of computers. So there are some properties of that generation of generation of computers. So in this first generation of computers, the systems were completely based on vacuum tubes. So vacuum tube was the component used in that first generation of computers, and to store the data in that systems, they used magnetic tapes. Magnetic tapes were used to store the data, and the main component was used as vacuum tubes. These computers relied on machine language to perform any operation and could solve only one problem at a time. So this first generation of computers relied, so means completely depend upon machine language, means 0 and 1 binary language. So it depends on binary language. Then what happens? The main drawback was it can perform only one sum at a time. It can solve only one problem at a time. Input was based on punch cards and paper tapes. People used to give the input by using punched cards and paper tapes. Output was displayed on printouts. So there was no monitors were present in a first generation of computers, and to get the output they used printers. So in the form of printouts they used to see the output, so final result. These computers were slow. These first generation computers were slow and very expensive, means cost was very high and large in size. The size of that systems, first generation of computers, were very large in size and consumed large amount of energy. In the sense, it was required more electricity, more power was required to use these systems. For example, UNIVAC, ENIAC and ADVAC. So these are some examples. So what are the disadvantages? It was very slow, it was very expensive, and the size of that systems were very large, and it used to consume more power. So these are the drawbacks, disadvantages of first generation of computers. Now we'll go to second generation. Second generation computers, so the period is 1956 to 1963. So 1956 to 1963 period was considered as second generation of computers. The second generation computers used transistors in place of vacuum tubes. In the first generation, scientists used vacuum tubes as a main component, but in the second generation they used transistors. Like the first generation, these computers relied on magnetic tape. Same like a first generation, so this system, second generation systems are also depends on magnetic tapes. Second generation computers moved from machine language to assembly language. So in the first generation they used machine language, means 0 and 1, but in the second generation systems they used assembly language, which allowed the programmers to specify instructions in words. Fortran, COBOL, basic languages came into existence in this generation. So instead of giving the instruction in the 0 and 1 form, they can give the instruction in the form of English letters, English words. So that is assembly language. So that codes were called as mnemonic codes. Some of the examples are Fortran. So these are the language names: Fortran, COBOL, BASIC. So these are the computer programming languages. So these languages came into existence. Punched cards and paper tapes were used as input devices, and output was presented through printouts. Again, they used punched cards and paper tapes as an input device, and to get the output they used printer. So in the form of printout they used to see the result. These computers were faster, cheaper, smaller and more efficient than the computers of the first generation. Compared to first generation, so this second generation computers were faster, compared to cost also a little cheap, and the size of that systems are so very small and more efficient than the first generation of computers. For example, IBM 1400, IBM 350, etc. So these all are example of second generation computers. So next comes third generation. So third generation computers period is 1964 to 1971. So 1964 to 1971 period is considered as third generation computers period. So these computers, third generation computers, used ICs, integrated circuits, as a main technology. In first generation used vacuum tubes, second generation used transistors, and third generation computers used IC, integrated circuits, as a main technology, as a main component. Magnetic discs were used for the storage. To store the data, to store the information, they used magnetic disc. Pascal RPG languages came into use during this time. So during the third generation of computers, Pascal, RPG, so these are programming languages, came into existence. These computers were small in size, had huge storage capacity, higher calculating speed and reliability than the previous generation of computers. Compared to first and second generation computers, this third generation computers size was very small and very huge storage capacity. You can store huge amount of data, higher calculating speed, the speed of processing also very high, and reliability than the previous generation of computers. Keyboard was used as an input device. So in a third generation they used keyboard as an input device, whereas monitors and printers were used as output device. So in a third generation, monitors and printers were introduced. IBM System 360, Apple I, Altair are some of the examples of third generation computers. So here IBM System 360, Apple I, Altair, these are some examples for third generation computers. So in the next session we will see fourth generation of computers and fifth generation of computers. Thank you for watching.